My name is Kushvar Mamedova. I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Vetsan Expertise and Pharmacy at the veterinary faculty. And today our lecture is dedicated to the animal behavior and animal welfare. I'm sorry, it's just a little mistake here because I just mixed behavior and welfare, and I am sure that you will apologize me, will forgive me for this mistake. So this course is for the students of the second year at of veterinary faculty, and I hope that they are already in front of their computers and listening to this lecture. So, introduction to animal behavior and animal welfare. What is this? It's just, I will tell just briefly about the history of the appearance of animal behavior subject and animal welfare, definitions of animal behavior and animal welfare. This is the brief description of our lecture outline. You can see what about we will talk during this lesson. Of course, 1 hour is not enough to explain the whole lecture, this part of animal behavior and animal welfare lesson, but anyway, I will try to explain you what is this subject talking about. So, the first slide. The scientific study of animal behavior is also called ethology, or even zoopsychology, but in general it's ethology, a term used first by the 19th century French zoologist Isidore Geoffroy Saint-Hilaire, but then used with its modern meaning by the American zoologist Wheeler in 1902. Ethology is derived from the Greek word ethos, meaning character. There is some resemblance with the word ethics, which is derived from the same Greek word. This makes sense. Why? Because seeing that we can see that ethics is basically about human ought to behave. It means how the human will behave in different situations. Unfortunately, the word ethology sometimes is confused with the word ethnology. With the word ethnology. This is in general the study of human, with which it has nothing in common. It's different sciences, ethology and ethnology. So for whatever reason, the word ethology is not used as much as it used to be. Let's continue the second slide, the next slide. Scientists studied animal behavior long before the word ethology was introduced and appeared. As I mentioned, it appeared in 19th century, but for instance, Aristotle had many interesting observations concerning animal behavior. There is the small question, why human is interested in animal behavior. Because you know that the most of our food is animal origin, and it means that, for example, if we are taking animal to the slaughter, not we of course, but veterinarians, I mean not veterinarians, but the people who are selling meat of animals, when they are, it's just a simple sample of animal behavior. When they are taking the animal to the slaughterhouses, it means that they have to keep them in low stress conditions. So that's why we are interested in this subject. The study of animal behavior was taken up more systematically, mainly by German and British zoologists around the turn of the 19th century. Again, pay attention, 19th century. But the beginning of the study of the animal behavior, of course, great British naturalist Charles Darwin became a pioneer of the theory of evolution by natural selection. It means that he was a pioneer of the study of animal behavior, in the study of the animal's behavior. And he called the theory of evolution by natural selection instinct. As early as 1873, a British scientist, investigator called Douglas Spalding recorded some very interesting observations on the behavior of young domestic chicks. It's just again a simple sample, a phenomenon that was later called imprinting. You can see instinct, imprinting. It's a new word for the students, but in the future further lectures, I will try to explain, to clarify what is instinct, what is imprinting. And I would like to mention that the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov studied conditioned and unconditioned reflexes of the animals and of course of the human, but mostly animals. And also American psychologist Edward Thorndike in 1911 studied animal behavior and did some interesting observations. Let's continue. Brief definition and scope. What is ethology in general? Ethology is the scientific and objective study of animal behavior, usually with a focus on behavior under natural conditions, and usually and viewing behavior as an evolutionarily adaptive trait. Ethology is a branch of zoology concerned with the study of animal behavior. Ethologists take a comparative approach, studying behaviors ranging from kinship, from cooperation and parental investment to conflict, to aggression, to sexual selection across a variety of species. Understanding ethology or animal behavior, from this moment, just remember that you will see the term ethology or animal behavior, it's the same definitions. Ethology, animal behavior. Ethology means animal behavior means ethology. So understanding ethology or animal behavior can be important in animal training. What is animal training? For example, you know that we have dogs in police, we have military dogs. So if you know the behavior of these special dogs, which you are going to use through your tasks in police or through your military tasks, it means that you will train them, but not suffer them. First of all, you have to pay attention. When you are training any animals, it doesn't matter, cat, dog, even at home, your pets, you cannot suffer them. Just be tender with your animals as with your children, with your child. Considering the natural behaviors of different species or breeds enables the trainer to select the individuals best suited to perform the required task. But again, if you want to train your pet or your animals, do not suffer them. It also enables the trainers to encourage the performance of naturally occurring behaviors and also the discontinuance of undesirable behaviors. Behaviorism is a term that also describes the scientific and objective study of animal behavior. Just a sample, it's not a sample, actually it's a part of this subject, animal behavior. It can be feed behavior, it can be sexual behavior. It depends on the situation, what you are going to observe. So usually referring to measured responses to stimuli or trained behavioral responses in laboratory context without a particular emphasis on evolutionary adaptivity, popularly known as classical conditioning, operant behavior, and instrumental behavior. We will, in our next lectures, we will deeply learn what is operant behavior, what is instrumental behavior. Again, as I mentioned in previous slides, there was a term instinct, there was term imprinting, and now operant behavior and instrumental behavior. It means it's a new the terms for the veterinarians who are just start to study. But in the future, you will see that this subject is very important for your future life and work with animals. So behavior occurs in an individual naturally or developed after a learning process due to environmental influence or contingencies of the outcome. Natural behaviors in a species occur by birth, which otherwise known as innate behavior. Again, the new term, innate behavior. It's really a very huge topic to discuss, but not now because it's just an introduction to the animal behavior. I will explain it in next lectures, next lessons, during next lessons. There is the very simple example. A dog will salivate the first time, and every time when he is seeing a food, it is exposed to food. The innate behaviors are usually stereotyped and called as fixed action pattern, abbreviation FAP. So if you will see FAP abbreviation, it means that fixed action pattern. FAPs are stereotyped behaviors that occur in predictable, inflexible sequence in response to an appropriate stimulus from the environment. On the other hand, the animals learn much behavior after birth. Even it's happening with humans, with people, because we are born with some behavior. We can, when just a newborn baby, he can react to the, let's say, through his life period, he can react through their life. They are let's say, improving. They are improving their behavior. So the learning depend upon the contingencies of the outcome, as I mentioned in the previous sentence. The improvement of learning is dependent on the outcome, whether it is positive or negative. Due to this reason, the learned behaviors usually vary in individuals of a same species. It means that at the same, let's say, different dogs, they are from the same species, but their behaviors are changing individually. So here is the continuation. The variations in learned behavior of an individual depend on the intensity of the environmental factors impacting on it. Of course, not only environmental factors are impacting on the individual's behavior, but mostly environment. When we are talking about environmental factors, it doesn't mean that only the nature which are around these species can influence to the animals. No. When we are talking about environmental factors, it means that it can be even the human factor, which can very let's say strongly influence on the behavior of an individuals. Therefore, it is true to say that the environment nurtures the learned behavior in an animals. Okay, so as I mentioned, the history of the animal behavior or ethology science is starting from the ancient times, even from ancient Greek, but the deep study is started in 19th and the beginning of 20th century, but the deep study started in the middle of 20th century. So, for example, Nico Tinbergen published a very important paper means the article, in 1963, in which he outlined the 4 major questions in the study of animal behavior, namely causation, development, function. By Tinbergen, function is the survival value, and evolution. About evolution, we talked in previous slides about Charles Darwin, and he was a pioneer in the study of evolution. So Tinbergen's 4 questions, sometimes also called 4 whys. Whys, why it means a question. Why it's happening, why it's so, not why? Because, here is it. Because they represent 4 ways of asking. Pay attention. Why does this animal behave in this way? Or why does this animal behave in this situation in this way? Let's consider a bird singing at dawn. Say a male song sparrow, nightingale, Melospiza melodia. The question is, why is this bird singing? It's a kind of learning a bird's behavior in this situation. Why is this bird singing? What is the reason of his singing, of its singing? Why the bird would like to sing, or why, and again why? This seems a perfectly straightforward question, but in fact it is not so easy. It's not so easy to respond to this question, because it can take any of 4 different forms. We mentioned Tinbergen's 4 questions, sometimes 4 whys. So, because it can take any of 4 different forms. These different forms have to do with Tinbergen's 4 whys. So, it means that 4 questions and 4 whys, back and forward, they are linked to each other. 4 questions, 4 whys. The first of the 4 questions concerns causation. Causation, it means the reason, cause. What causes the bird to sing? Another way of asking this is, what are the mechanisms underlying the male's singing behavior? It means, how to explain it? It means that what kind of mechanism can direct the bird to sing? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh. Okay. These mechanisms involve the machinery that operates within the animal and which is responsible for the production of behavioral output. So, 4 questions. Here is the brief explanation of these 4 questions. First, proximate, mechanistic. How? The first question. Questions addresses mechanisms and structures within an animal that give rise to behavior. Examples: what is the causal relationship between an animal's genes and its behavior? Actually, I would like to ask ADAU team to put these questions and to send these questions to the second-year students at veterinary faculty. I will ask you later. So, for the further lessons, to get the answers to these questions from these students. Okay, let's continue. This is simple samples for this approximate mechanistic how question. The second question, genetic, developmental. What is this? This question is addresses the construction of anatomical, biological systems that produce behavior. How do gene, environmental and developmental processes interact to produce the final gene neural muscle systems that produce behavior? How do variation in gene, environment or development affect behavior? Okay. The third question, the third why, let's say, it's a physiological. Address the functioning to sensory neuron muscular systems that produce behavior. I will not give samples. And the last why, ultimate, evolutionary. Why? Questions try to identify and reconstruct the evolutionary history of a behavior. Has the behavior evolved over time? If so, why did the changes take place? And I forgot to add, and how did the change take place? What was the original step in the historical process that led to the current behavior? Okay, I told you about 4 categories of questions. Each is just the brief form of this part of the slide. Origin of animal behavior as a, okay, let's stop here. Origin of animal behavior as a field of study. I mentioned that animal behavior and ethology, it's the same science. But when we are starting to learn animal behavior subject, we have to pay attention to these issues. Ethology's issues are evolutionary perspective, primarily field-based, wide range of animal studies, psychology, mechanistic, developmental perspective, primarily lab-based, focused primarily on mammals. But I would like to mention the other issue, very important issue, that sometimes you can see that animal behavior and ethology also can be called as zoopsychology. Okay. Principles of ethology, principles of evolution. What is principles of evolution? Change in the frequency of alleles, genotypes in the population over time, even less than generation. Adaptation, a phenotypic trait that helps an individual survive or reproduce. Genotypes and phenotype. What is the difference? Natural continuation, natural selection. Differential reproduction of genotypes leads to persistence of those genotypes that enable an individual to survive or reproduce most effectively. Sample, change in antibiotic resistance of the tuberculosis bacterium. Only traits that are variable and inheritable are subject to natural selection. Sample, rabbit camouflage. Where does variability come from? We will skip this slide. Ethological methods. What kind of ethological methods are existing? So, comparative approach. What is comparative approach? Overall concept. It means that behavioral difference among related species are due. It means that we are studying behavioral differences among related species are due to environmental differences. Sample, comparisons of ground nesting and cliff nesting gull species. It's by Easter Cullen, 1957. It means that the article was published in 1957 and observations were carried out in 1957. Benefits of this approach. It means that you have to be able to explain why this happened in this situation and in different situations, behavior of animals. Limitations of this approach. Again, be able to explain. It means that if there is any limitation of comparative approach, you have to be able to explain why it is limited. Okay, the next method, experimental approach. The concept of this approach is manipulate variables in field or lab and absorb and to be able to measure consequences. Sample, classical experiments in science and Signals Video Wednesday, studies by Karl von Frisch, Nico Tinbergen and Konrad Lorenz. By the way, Konrad Lorenz is an German scientist. Benefits of this approach. It means that you have to be able to explain how experimental approach can be able to study these concepts in different situations and limitations. Again, the same situation. If this experimental approach is limited, so you have to be able to explain why. Okay. Oh. Okay. Key concepts in ethology. Let's say main concepts in ethology. I have already mentioned fixed action patterns, FAP, can be initiated by environmental stimulus but proceed to completion. Example, grey-lodged goose, egg-rolling behavior. Occur in unalterable stereotyped sequence. Minor alterations may occur. Continue. Sign, stimul, and releasers. Function, what is the function of this concept? Is to serve to trigger the fixed action patterns, FAP. Example, attack behavior in stickback males. But let's say that we will stop on all these concepts, on all these issues separately in the next lectures. It's just a brief information about the subject in general, what is animal and what is animal behavior or ethology subject, and that's why I just prepared this slide very briefly. So key concepts is continuation, signs, stimuli, and releasers. Let's continue. Key concepts in ethology. That's the same. Let's go. Okay. So as a conclusion, as a brief conclusion for animal behavior or ethology, I would like to say that animal behavior has grown into a highly diverse set of approaches and disciplines. It's a subject area range from molecules and neurons to individuals and populations. Let's say from a very small to the very huge. One of Tinbergen's, pay attention, from the beginning till the end of the definition of animal behavior of ethology, you are meeting the name of Nico Tinbergen. It means that he was not pioneer, but in the top of the researchers who was involved in the investigations and research in animal behavior and ethology science or ethology science. So one of the Tinbergen's major contributions to the study of animal behavior has been to make its goals explicit and clarify the 4 types of questions that can be asked of behavior: causation, development, function, and evolution. We strongly, the scientists and the veterinarians strongly, let's say, advocate Tinbergen's position that behavior can only be understood through research on all 4 questions. It means that all these 4 questions and the study and research on animal behavior very connected to each other, and you cannot do any research without these without answers to these all 4 questions. They linked each other. In addition, we suggest that it is made clear which of Tinbergen's questions is addressed when a behavior problem is investigated. a problem in one domain should not be investigated with concepts from another. That was brief information about animal behavior, but as I mentioned in the topic of the lecture, our lecture was the animal behavior and animal welfare. What is welfare? Okay. Before I will start to explain my slides, I would like to say by my own words what is animal, how I can understand, how I am understanding the animal welfare. What is animal welfare? It means that you are just environment, I mean the people, are just caring about animals. Briefly, it means care about animal welfare. And if you have a good plan and good care about animals, it means that you can even prevent infectious diseases or some other problems which can cause low care about animals. And now, the concept of animal welfare. Let's pass to the scientific definition of it. What is animal welfare? The concept of animal welfare includes the physical health, the emotional state, and the behavior of animals. Pay attention, behavior. It means that if you will not pay attention to the behavior of animals, you will never be able to take care of animals, even if this animal is going to go to the slaughterhouse, let's say for cutting. So this code includes the principle that all actions carried out on an animal should have as their ultimate goal the conservation of the species without compromising the animal's welfare, without influencing on the animal's welfare. Animals are used for human benefit, but pay attention, I mentioned it. Animals are used for human benefit in many ways across the planet. It means that humans are using animals in many ways for eating, not only as meat, but it can be milk, it can be different kinds of foods. But including food, entertainment, it means that in movies or in somewhere else, sport, for scientific research. What is scientific research? You know that we have lab animals. If you are going to conduct any research on lab animals, it doesn't mean that, let's say you are going to test some drugs on laboratory animals. It doesn't mean that you will not care about these animals. And okay, anyway, this lab animal will die, so it doesn't matter. Feed them or or water them. So scientific research, it means that you have to care about laboratory animals even if they die after your research. So transport and companionship. Companionship, it means that your animals, your domestic animals or pets, how they ought to be used and our responsibilities towards them have been the subjects of moral concern since at least ancient Greece to the present day. I mentioned that animal behavior studies started even in ancient Greece by Aristotle, by his observations on animal behavior. Animal welfare concern arises as a result of welfare harms sustained by sentient animals. It is necessary to reliably identify and assess these harms in order to determine whether an animal's welfare is compromised, is, let's say, suffering. It is often necessary to attempt to quantify the scale of harm to inform ethical judgments on their acceptability. I told you that ethic and ethology, they are from the same Greek word ethics. Ethos means character. Okay, so the concern for animal welfare stems from the recognition that animals are not only reactive to their environments, but also very sensitive. And again, environments does not only mean the nature, environments mean the people as well. This implies that animals have emotional capacities such that they will attempt to minimize negative emotions, for example, fear or frustration, etc., while seeking positive emotions, pleasure, joy. By the way, I would like to mention that in these slides, in this lecture, I put the literature, the bibliography which I used for this lecture, for this lesson. However, whereas it is claimed in the context of quality of life that animals are sentient creatures. Please don't think that this lesson or this subject of animal behavior or ethology is boring. I will explain you why it is not boring and why you have to learn this subject, because as I told you, if you are veterinarian in whole of your soul, then it means that you will firstly study this subject and then the others. This animal behavior, physiology and anatomy. Okay, let's continue. However, it is paradoxical that there is no strong scientific knowledge of what their emotional experiences are. In addition to emotions, which are by definition short-lived, the concept of welfare, of animal welfare, involves more persistent affective states that influence the way in which the individual perceives and reacts to its environment. What is, briefly, what is animal welfare? Complex concept with three areas of concern. First, according Fraser and 1997, is the animal functioning well? For example, good health, productivity, etc. The second area is the second question: is the animal feeling well? Absence of pain, etc. And is the animal able to perform natural species typical behaviors that are thought to be important to them? For example, example can be grazing. Three approaches when considering animal welfare: physical, mental, aspects of naturalness. We will skip it. Okay. So animal welfare is a multifaceted issue which implies important scientific, ethical, even economic and political dimensions. Thus, this science needs an interdisciplinary approach, bringing together researchers from different disciplines within the biological sciences, such as physiology, veterinary science. Dear veterinarians, pay attention. Veterinary science, ethology, and comparative physiology. You know, I would like to say that in Europe there is an organization, OIE. It's a French organization, but it's all over the world, is very popular. OIE, which is, this organization is involved in the animal welfare improvement. It means that this organization all over the world, they have offices, even in Azerbaijan we have their office. They are only involved in the animal welfare, animal care, and etc. So, ethology, moreover, also the first steps had been based on the natural sciences. Subsequently, it appeared necessary to use a broad, multi-faced approach to scientific animal welfare questions. In fact, this approach mainly combining ethology, physiology, psychology, I mentioned zoopsychology, and the studies of the human-animal interaction. Environment, we mentioned environment factors which are influencing on animal welfare. Environmental factors, it's human-animal interaction. Let's say, let's give the very simple sample. Nowadays, you know, all of us know that we have pandemic problems. For example, last time on Facebook, on social network, I saw the video which showed that in Bali, on this island, most of the people, they're just threw out the pets, their pets. Because you know that Bali, it's a touristic zone, and the people who are living there, they just have their incomes through the touristic system. But because of this pandemic, all the borders are closed and the people cannot feed themselves. So they just threw out their pets. It was really very, suffer on me. And in my opinion, and my environment and my friends think that we prefer to feed our animals. I have 4 cats. So, in my opinion, it means that I think that firstly we have to feed, we have to take care of our pets firstly. And after that, even we can stay hungry, but animals, no. We can explain our problems, but animals, they do not have language, they do not have tongue to explain their problems, and they cannot say that we are suffering them, we hurt them, etc. So, okay, in fact, this approach mainly, I mentioned that mainly combining ethology, physiology, psychology, etc. So, may offer the advantages of improving the understanding of knowledge about animal welfare issues, as well as to obtain methodological gains. In my last slide, I would like to say that it's a little bit maybe a sensitive moment, but if you are a veterinarian with your whole soul, then you will not find this lesson boring. The first impression, of course, it's just the subject with the set of words, but when you start to get into the essence of this subject, then everything becomes clear. And as a veterinarian, you understand that without awareness of the behavior of animals in different and certain situations, it is impossible to treat or do anything at all. The simple example is a horse. How difficult it is to train it, but knowing its habits and being affectionate with it, you will find a very devoted friend. Take care of animals because they are the only living creatures on this earth, on this planet, who will love you without expecting any reciprocity. Thank you for your attention.